What is up, viewer? My fellow advocates, Mr. Wayne here. Guess what day it is? It is Wednesday, July 9th of 2025. And we are on the very last part of the master key system. 6 months. 6 months in we're on the last lap. It's been quite the journey. Oh man, so many days I didn't want to wake up and do it. We did it anyway. And I feel, even though we're not done yet, I feel very proud. It's a personal thing that I did for myself, and I did it to document the information that's in here, and also to prove that it's real, that it's true, that this is how things are. And because money talks, when I have a lot of money, helping a lot more people ask, Mr. Wayne, how'd you do it? You want to know how I did it? I went into the silence and learned something that most people don't know, and I applied it, and here I am. And here's a program. Here's my master key program, right? And it's a very exciting thing. We did decide to do something new. We shaved our mustache, and I've had a mustache for the last 10 years, and I could feel the air hitting my skin. It feels very weird. It feels very weird for you men out there that, let's say you had a beard, mustache for a very, 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 very long time, and you decide to shave it. You know the feeling of it being bald right there, and it feels kind of weird, but I like it. It's not bad. We have our notes right here for real estate. We just got back from a meeting probably about 40 minutes ago now, and we learned a lot today. A lot of things make a lot more sense. Remember last week I started with getting my license, and this week when my colleague agents, you can say, they were talking about bumps, written agreements, bill of sales, all that stuff. I understood more of it because we're going through learning the basics now, and it's very exciting. It was a lot of fun. And after the meeting, I was talking with one of the other agents, and she closed a deal yesterday. She made 19,000 off one deal. And she told me she's at a point she's selling between 35 and 40 houses a year. Freaking 35 to 40 houses a year. That's almost a house a week. That's like a house every week and a half to 2 weeks. And averaging 20 grand on each of those houses, that's a good amount of money. That's, like my mentor, like Erica said, the lead broker, all I have to do is sell 2 homes to make more in 1 year than what I'm making at Walmart. And my e-commerce has been on hold. I gotta fund it. I don't want an investor, because an investor wants to have a say in where the business goes, and I have my own ideal of where I want the business to go, what I want it to stand for, and I gotta fund it. And like I said, money talks. When you're the one with the money and you're paying other people, you're the one that gets to choose where it goes. And it's been a long time there in the society, right? Like I gotta have the fruit on the tree for people to really hear the nature of consciousness, what they could do through consciousness. And how much more I understand now through my own personal experiences. And because, like I said, every time I act on something, I'm thinking about acting on it first. It all originates first in thought. It really truly does. And when I come across an experience, sometimes I experience things that I was legitimately just thinking about, right? Like Mr. Hanel says, it's thought will automatically correlate with its object and bring it into manifestation. Like the physical experience of it doesn't happen until you're thinking about it first, right? And I'm not saying this goes with everything in your life, because cause and effect is at play in everybody's lives. And sometimes you are the effect of somebody else's cause. And sometimes they're the effect of your cause, right? It's the correspondence of everything. It's the oneness of everything that the universe brings everybody what they're manifesting all inclusively into one play. It's one grand harmony, one play. And understanding that, knowing that, it's like, hey, all I have to do is start thinking upon something, acting on it, move in its direction. And I don't know how, but the things and experiences in my life are just going to correspond with the thought process, with the thing that I'm thinking about. And through time, and as I build or take action, it becomes more and more apparent, right? The thoughts start to bloom, so to speak. Like real estate, for example, right? I'm focusing on it. I'm moving towards its direction. I'm getting further and further along with it. And it's only going to stay that way as long as I continue to focus on it and take action towards it. Eventually, when I'm at the position of being a licensed realtor, having my signs, and running my own open houses, right? That's a higher level of manifestation. I stuck with it for so long. Now I'm at a different point throughout that manifestation process of selling the homes, making some money, making some good money, and getting out of this 9-to-5 bull crap that we all deal with. And one thing me and the other agent were talking about, we were talking about the government, we were talking about taxes. And I ended up saying, you know what, it's one or the other. You're either going to be working for the government or the government's going to be working for you. Right? Like it all leads back to money. It all leads back to your resources. Because the government and the Constitution is mainly what? To protect your rights and give you the right in this free and open market to go out and provide service to your society. And then you pay your taxes, whatever. But ultimately, you have the choice to provide in such a way that, there's really no limitation to what you provide as long as you have the finance behind it, as long as you have the money to do it, and you're paying your fair share. But we know those billionaires, multiple billionaires, a lot of them, if not all of them, are even paying taxes at all. Now, they have these incentives because of what they're doing. They're doing certain things. Everything is set up a certain way, which allows them to use certain loopholes. And that's what we mean. Like, you're either going to be working for the government, you work your 9-to-5, whatever, you get paid dog crap, and they tax you on anything and everything, and they take more in taxes when you make more. But if you're doing something else, and you understand certain taxes and you understand certain ways of doing things, the government will essentially work for you. And you're just racking it up, making more and more money. Then you could take that, empower the choices you make, and depending on, obviously, the heart that wills the tool, you could go out and you could fight for amazing causes. You could help other people. You could do anything. You could travel the world. You could sit on your butt and not do anything, right? You lay on the beach, get a tan, whatever. Yeah, it's just it all leads back to it all leads back to the money. And like we learned in the last part, even money and all that comes from the Spirit, the power that's inside of us, the power which has its center within our very awareness, our center of consciousness. And from that center of consciousness originates thought. And the actions we take are dependent upon the thoughts we are thinking about. So the spiritual activity of thought, as we are told, we have to establish its mental equivalent first, and its manifestation will follow. We have to be the thing first, and then its experience will follow. And even the cause of money and cause of wealth and riches, all that originates in a thought process. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead. Let's get started with part 24, the last part of this program. After this, we are going to eat, get our workout in. We got back. We hit biceps yesterday. We got some, I don't know, we might do back today. We might do chest. I could hit either one of those. Because I hit biceps yesterday, I didn't really do tries, so my triceps aren't sore. So we might hit chest and tries. Maybe some lateral shoulder raises too, possibly some shoulder press, but we'll see, and we'll see when we get there. And then take some notes after that and do our 30 minutes of meditation. And even after we're done with this, we're still going to be listening to these chapters. Throw a chapter on, just doesn't matter which one, and keep doing the practice, because this is practical information, right? This is information that's not theory. It's practical. You could take it and utilize it and use it. And using it, it'll change your behavior. It'll change your thought process, your train of thought, the way you think about things. And from there, you apply it to whatever it is you're trying to achieve, whatever goal you have. So let's get started. Introduction, part 24. So Mr. Hanel says, enclosed, you will find part 24, your final lesson of this course. If you have practiced each of the exercises a few minutes every day as suggested, you will have found that you can get out of life exactly what you wish by first putting into life that which you wish. And you will probably agree with the student who said, quote, the thought is almost overwhelming, so vast, so available, so definite, so reasonable, and so usable, end quote. The fruit of this knowledge is, as it were, a gift of the gods. It is the truth that makes men free, not only free from every lack and limitation, but free from sorrow, worry, and care. And is it not wonderful to realize that this law is no respecter of persons, that it makes no difference what your habit of thought may be? The way has been prepared. So what Mr. Hanel is saying there, that understanding this information, having this information, is a total gift that comes from God Himself, herself, itself, right? The infinite intelligence of nature that permeates all space, animates all living things, that is within you and has created you in its image through the image of consciousness, right? The spiritual image. Like we are told, when we come to God, we must come to Him in spirit. Because the flesh is the covering, it is the vessel, it is the way the spirit manifests itself in a specific form. So coming to the spirit in spirit is meeting at the basis of all existence, meeting at the foundation of everything that exists. And he's also saying that the law is no respecter of anybody. The only thing that it responds to your mental attitude, right? So it doesn't matter what it is that you're thinking, the law is going to respond to it. And this is why it's very important. This is why morals are so important. So we're not focused on any destructive thinking, because if you're thinking about destructive things, and you do it habitually, you're eventually going to start acting upon it. You just act on it subconsciously. And you'll be creating that destruction not only in your life, but in the lives of the others around you, and vice versa when it comes to constructive things. If you're religious, saintly things, holy things. He says, if you're inclined to be religious, the greatest religious teacher the world has ever known made the way so plain that all may follow. And he's talking about Christ. He's talking about Jesus. He says, if your mental bias is toward physical science, the law will operate with mathematical certainty. If you are inclined to be philosophical, Plato or Emerson may be your teacher, but in either case you may reach degrees of power to which it is impossible to assign any limit. And that's the beauty of principle, and that's also the beauty of science. Okay, because science is what? It is the searching for the secrets of God. It is a search for the laws of nature. It is experimenting, finding out from observation, not from what you think something is. It's from what is observed to be real, what is observed to be the way things are, and making your thought process, and what is the word I'm looking for? Align your thought process with what is observed to be, right? Because it's, aside from opinion, it is a legitimate, hey, this is how it is. This is how things are from the Creator, the Infinite. And like I said, whether it's from a religious teaching, whether it's from a spiritual teaching, whether it's from a philosophical teaching, or a scientific teaching, the truth of it is still the same. The only difference is the way it is presented. An understanding of this principle, I believe, is a secret for which the ancient alchemists vainly sought, because it explains how gold in the mind may be transmuted into gold in the heart and in the hand. So ultimately, Mr. Hanel believed that the secret of these alchemists in the past was to gain an understanding of the power of creative thought, and using creative thought in such a way to where, as he's saying, you're transmuting gold from the mind and heart into holding that gold within your hand, ultimately transmuting the vision and desire you have towards something and bringing it about to experiencing its physical reality. Now, that's the end of the introduction. Let's get started with the part. So, part 24. He says, when the scientists first put the sun in the center of the solar system and sent the earth spinning around it, there was immense surprise and consternation. The whole idea was self-evidently false. Nothing was more certain than the movement of the sun across the sky, and anyone could see it descend behind the western hills and sink into the sea. Scholars raged and scientists rejected the idea as absurd, yet the evidence has finally carried convictions in the minds of all. So he's saying when science finally discovered that the earth was rotating around the sun and not the other way around, people had a hard time believing it because they believed so long, and they're looking at the viewpoint of the senses that, hey, the sun rises from one end and falls on the other end. So just from looking at it from that perspective, the sun revolves around the earth. Right? That was the old way of thinking about it. But when science came along and they realized that the earth was revolving around the sun instead, and the earth was spinning on its axis, it was very hard for the thinking of the masses, so to speak, or the social thought of the situation. It was very hard for it to change, even though the proof that it was different than what they thought it was there. He says the exact same thing with understanding the mind and consciousness, right? It'll take a while for the general public to understand the power that they actually have, because they spent so long believing otherwise, even if the evidence is here in front of them. He says, we speak of a bell as a sounding body, yet we know that all the bell can do is to produce vibrations in the air. When these vibrations come at a rate of 16 per second, they cause a sound to be heard in the mind. It is also possible for the mind to hear vibrations up to a rate of 38,000 vibrations per second. When the number increases beyond this, all is silence again, so that we know that the sound is not in the bell. It is in our own mind. So what he's saying there is, we know everything is energy. Everything's made inside and out of consciousness. Everything is essentially the exact same thing. What makes it different is how our mind picks up and receives it. For example, let's say our eyes, we know our physical eyes are picking up on a rate of vibration, and this vibration is vibrating at a specific frequency, and that specific frequency is from one range to another range. Okay, our eyes do that. Our ears do exactly the same thing. They are picking up on frequencies. It's still frequency, whether it's being picked up by our eyes or whether it's being picked up by our ears. It's still frequency. It's still energy in motion. It's still a vibration. It's the level of vibration and the level of rapidity of the energy in motion that is going to have our mind determine whether we're going to pick up on the waves of sound or the waves of color. And we know that there's tons and trillions of waves around us all at once. Now, I know I said this in another video when we were talking about angels, right? Angels and demons. Who are we to say that they don't exist? Because we know our existence is happening on a specific frequency. We're experiencing this reality that's on a certain plane of vibration, right? And there's an infinite number of vibrations. And if infinite intelligence is truly infinite, what we're experiencing as reality as humans is only a certain degree out of all the realities that are possibly happening around us that we're just not aware of because we're not operating on that specific frequency. It's very interesting, like he's saying right here, and as I just mentioned, the difference between what we hear as sound and what we see as color is dependent upon the vibration of that energy that's being distributed, or that's being sent off, or that's traveling the universal mind. And how could it be otherwise? Or we know everything is made out of atoms. We know these atoms are made out of protons, neutrons, and electrons. We know those protons and neutrons exist inside the nucleus of the atom. Well, the electron not only pops in and out of existence, but exists on the outside the nucleus of the atom in the electron cloud. We know the electron cloud constitutes, what was it, like 99.9 or 99.4% of empty space. So in the nucleus of the atom constitutes 0.6%. And that telling us that the electron itself is over 99% empty space. So that tells us too that the majority of our universe is 99% empty space. It's 99% invisible. While this reality we see in the material world only constitutes less than 1% of our reality. That's I need to get a drink of that right there. I know it's a trip. It's an interesting idea. Because that even tells us too that this body only constitutes 1% of who we are and what we are. Well, the other 99% of us is spiritual. It exists on a higher plane. And as we're learning between cause and effect, that all causes first start spiritually, while the effects in turn come about on the physical plane. Which we know when God created the entire universe, his spirit was here first. The spirit was first. Then everything that came into the universe as a material fact came inside and out of the spirit. So let's continue. It says, we speak and even think of the sun as giving light, yet we know it is simply giving forth energy which produces vibrations in the ether at the rate of 400 trillion a second, causing what are termed light waves, so that we know that we call light. I think they forgot a what in there. So that we know that what we call light is simply a form of energy. So Handel's saying it right there, that the energy is nothing but a big ball of electromagnetic energy, right? It's just a mass of energy. But we see light waves, it's just energy, but the light waves we see are this energy vibrating at, what did he say, 400 trillion vibrations a second, which is a lot of vibrations. He says, so that we know what we call light is simply a form of energy, that the only light there is the sensation caused in the mind by the motion of the waves. When the number increases, the light changes in color, each change in color being caused by shorter and more rapid vibrations, so that although we speak of the rose as being red, the grass as being green, or the sky as being blue, we know that the color exists only in our minds, and are the sensations experienced by us as the result of the vibrations of light waves. Had a gnat flying around in here. You probably seen him earlier, because I did see it get caught in the camera. But anyway, let's continue. He's telling us all these colors, these different sounds, anything that we're experiencing in the mind, because that's how the mind is perceiving that wave, we can say, of energy, or that everything is just energy in motion. It is vibrating at a certain frequency, and depending upon its frequency is how we determine it to exist as our reality. It says, when the vibrations are reduced below 400 trillion a second, they no longer affect us as light, but we experience the sensation of heat. It is evident, therefore, that we cannot depend upon the evidence of the senses for our information concerning the realities of things. If we did, we should believe that the sun moved, that the world was flat instead of round, that the stars were bits of light instead of vast suns. Which he does make a very good point. Even Christ said we cannot judge things by appearances, right? We have to look at the thing from a higher viewpoint, by its spiritual viewpoint. And we know that, even the sun isn't in one place either. It's revolving around a massive black hole in the middle of the entire galaxy. He says, the whole range, then, of the theory and practice of any system of metaphysics consists in knowing the truth concerning yourself, in the world in which you live, in knowing that in order to express harmony, you must think harmony. In order to express health, you must think health. And in order to express abundance, you must think abundance. To do this, you must reverse the evidence of the senses. When you come to know that every form of disease, sickness, lack, and limitation are simply the result of wrong thinking, you have come to know, quote, the truth which shall make you free, end quote. You will see how mountains may be removed. Ultimately, it sounds like he's telling me, or he's telling us, yes, these things are true that he's saying, but he's using these as examples when it comes to the results or fruits that you experience in your life. Do not judge your life depending upon the experiences which you have, because you have the power to change it, right? Because it comes from consciousness alone. He even opens the entire program with that, right? Don't complain of conditions as they are or how they have been, because it rests with us. It rests with you solely to change it, because you have the power to change it. And he's saying right here, he's using as an example, if you're experiencing sickness, if you're experiencing disease, if you're experiencing lack of any kind, he says, do not accept it as something that's final, right? Because even these results come from a cause that set these results in motion, right? Do not depend upon the evidence of the things that you see. Look at the higher truth. The truth, which he says, as the Master said, which shall make you free. We know that truth is the spirit. It is spiritual. It's internal. It's the creative factor of everything in existence. It's the Spirit of God. He says, you will see how mountains may be removed. If these mountains consist only of doubt, fear, distrust, or other forms of discouragement, they are nonetheless real, and they need not only to be removed, but to be, quote, cast into the sea, end quote. Ultimately telling you and us that, hey, don't even think about it at all. Get rid of it entirely in consciousness. Don't even look at it. Don't even focus on it. Don't even acknowledge it. Instead, acknowledge the power that you have, and acknowledge how you need to set different causes in motion to experience a different result. He says your real work consists in convincing yourself of the truth of these statements. When you have succeeded in doing this, you will have no difficulty in thinking the truth. And as has been shown, the truth contains a vital principle and will manifest itself. He says, those who heal diseases by mental methods have come to know this truth. They demonstrate it in their lives and the lives of others daily. They know that life, health, and abundance are omnipresent, filling all space, and they know that those who believe, or that those who allow disease or lack of any kind to manifest, have as yet not come into an understanding of this great law. So he's saying those that were able to heal, those that were able to change things for the better through mental means alone, understood the fundamental truth that everything that exists, including the individual themselves, everything comes from an omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, and immortal, intelligent, creative power. And this intelligent, creative power is within us, right? It is a part of us. We are a part of it. This is what Christ taught as the Father within. And through the creative power of thought, through our ability to focus on a specific thing, is what allows this power inside of us to come out and manifest, bring forth that specific thing which we have our focus on. Like Christ said, it is not I that doeth the work, but the Father within me, the creative power within me. He does the work. He says, as all conditions are thought creations and therefore entirely mental, disease and lack are simply mental conditions in which the person fails to perceive the truth. As soon as the error is removed, the condition is removed. Ultimately, knowing thought being the center of the error, he's saying when you change the thought process that caused it to happen to begin with, then you'll get rid of the effect of it altogether, because you're changing the cause, you're changing the thought. says the method for removing this error is to go into the silence and know the truth. As all mind is one mind, you can do this for yourself or anyone else. If you have learned to form mental images of the conditions desired, this will be the easiest and quickest way to secure results. If not, results can be accomplished by argument, by the process of convincing yourself absolutely of the truth of your statement. So what he is saying is to remove an undesirable condition in your life. You have to go into the silence, get into conscious unity with the infinite power that is within you, that is within all things, and focus your mind solely on the conditions which you desire to manifest and create for yourself. That's what he's saying, because ultimately you're moving the creative power, which is the creative power of your thought, and you're moving it into a different causation, you can say. You're moving it to start causing a different effect to happen. He says, remember, and this is one of the most difficult as well as the most wonderful statements to grasp. Remember that no matter what the difficulty is, no matter where it is, no matter who is affected, you have no patient but yourself. You have nothing to do but to convince yourself of the truth which you desire to see manifested. It's interesting he said that, because I know I even said many parts prior back, or when it comes to the very thing that you're manifesting, if you're manifesting something for yourself, ultimately you can have that thing, right? You'll be given everything you need in order to make it happen. But if that goal you have involves somebody else, that other person has the choice whether they want to be a part of it or not, right? So we could only focus on what we want and do our best to, obviously we want to give others what they want too, but we can't force or coerce things upon others. Or we can only, right, you have to focus on attracting. You can only attract things. It says this is an exact scientific statement in accordance with every system of metaphysics and evidence or in existence, and no permanent results are ever secured in any other way. It says every form of concentration, forming mental images, argument, and autosuggestion are all simply methods by which you are enabled to realize the truth. If you desire to help someone to destroy some form of lack, limitation, or error, the correct method is not to think of the person whom you wish to help. The intention to help them is entirely sufficient, as this puts you in mental touch with the person. Then drive out of your mind, in your own mind, any belief of lack, limitation, disease, danger, difficulty, or whatever the trouble might be. As soon as you have succeeded in doing this, the result will have been accomplished, and the person will be free. So he's saying there's nothing you have to do for somebody other than visualize the end result as apparent for them, because the intention of doing something for them will help them anyway. And we know that others have to do for themselves what is in their responsibility to do for themselves, just like we have to do for ourselves what is our responsibility to do mainly for ourselves. It's very interesting too, because it reminds me of, I was hearing, I believe it was Chinese doctors, they had this certain mantra or certain saying, and they were healing or getting rid of a tumor by using a word. Now the power behind the word was not the word itself, but what that word implied. And the word implied something like you're healed now, right? You're good now. Like the disease isn't there anymore, because now you're healed, you're good, right? So these group of doctors got with the patient that was experiencing a tumor, but they were just repeating and chanting the certain word, ultimately saying, you're healed now, you're healed now. And they had sound playing, they were repeating their mantra. And what has been found is during that moment of them doing that mantra, the tumor was being destroyed. The person, the cancer, whatever patient, whatever disease they had, the patient was being cured at that moment, at the time of the mantra, right? It was happening right there and then. And ultimately, that's an example of what Handel's explaining here, right? Because these doctors, they were looking at the patient's condition as if they were healed already, and looking at the patient, repeating the mantra, believing that her healing existed here and now, she became healthy again. It's very interesting, very interesting. And as even Christ says, when you read the scripture, he says, it's your faith has made you well, right? There were so many people, especially in the land that he came from, there were so many patients he had that he couldn't heal because they didn't believe. They didn't have the faith. And for those that did have the faith, he tells them what? Your faith has made you well. It says, but remember that thought is creative, and consequently, every time you allow your thought to rest on any inharmonious conditions, you must realize that such conditions are apparent only. They have no reality. That spirit is the only reality, and it can never be less than perfect. Now, it's a very interesting idea. He's saying, if the spirit of which everything is made out of is perfect and is always perfect and will always be perfect, he's saying any condition that we experience, anything that we see, it is what it is in regards to how we see it, and it's created as it is in regards to how we are thinking about it. Because to change the meaning of it, to change what you create, to change any experience, starts with changing your mind, changing your perception, changing your thought process about it. Because life in the thing is what it is. It is your mind. It is your thought process. It's your center of consciousness which creates it to be a certain way. Neville Goddard talks about something similar. He says if you have a memory that's not a very happy memory, he called it, I don't know if it was like a reconditioning of the memory, changing the way you see it. You even hear it today, like, Tony Robbins will talk about change your story, change what things mean to you. Other thought leaders say the same thing. It's changing your story. Like, the experience is the experience, but you need to change your perception of the experience. You need to change how you think about the experience. Because the change in thought is going to change what the experience actually was. Because the experience within itself, it just is something that is, right? But our thought behind what it is what makes it what it is. He says all thought is a form of energy, a rate of vibration, but a thought of the truth is the highest rate of vibration known, and consequently destroys every form of error in exactly the same way that light destroys darkness. No form of error can exist when the truth appears, so that your entire mental work consists in coming into an understanding of the truth. This will enable you to overcome every form of lack, limitation, or disease of any kind. So he's saying the best and most direct way of changing your life and all that exists in your life is to understand the truth of who you are, the truth of what life is, and acting accordingly. I don't know how else I could put it. Because when you understand cause and effect, when you understand consciousness, when you understand the brain as a mechanism, it's nothing but a conglomeration of brain cells that change themselves in accordance to what you are focusing on most of the time. How can it be otherwise that you have creative energy, you have creative power, that you can create the life that you want through understanding the truth of who you are? Because ultimately you'll be applying yourself in a different way. That's what it comes down to. Understanding specific information about this universe which we live in, and applying the power of which you are in a different way. Because now you understand what happens through the application of your thought process and what you're focused on. He says, we can get no understanding of the truth from the world without. The world without is relative only. And as he said, you can't really rely on the senses to establish truth for you. You have to rely on observation. You have to rely on science. You have to rely on a higher infinite intelligence, a higher intelligence that we can study and understand. We could do that because thought, right? Thought is the power which allows us to. That's why thought is a spiritual, divine thing. Remember, reason is a divine quality that we have as humans. Reason and imagination is the very thing that separates us from everything else, from every other creature. It is simply because of reason and consciousness in our ability to imagine. It says, truth is absolute. We must therefore find it in the world within. We can only understand the truth in the spiritual aspect of reality. We can only understand the truth by the cause of reality, not by the effects. Well, effects could lead us to the causes. But obviously acting from the viewpoint of the cause is the most important factor. He says the absolute truth is that the I is perfect and complete. Now remember, this I he's talking about is the I. It's awareness. It's the central point of consciousness itself. He's not talking about these eyes. He's talking about this I. He's talking about the conscious, self-aware part of who we are. He says the real I is spiritual and can therefore never be no less than perfect. It can never have any lack, limitation, or disease. Okay. We know the infinite intelligence does have its own identity, which God told Moses through the burning bush, that I am that I am. That God's name is I am that I am, and that is his name forever and for all eternity. And I am that I am insinuates something that just is, that is able to be all things, right? I am that I am insinuates that he is, that I am is that. I am is also that. I am is everything. And I am is the Spirit. So he's saying this Spirit, the spiritual I am, being omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, and immortal, understanding the power that's behind this I, and understanding that you being a central point of manifestation for this infinite I to manifest through. And that your real nature is spiritual in nature. And if the infinite I has all these qualities and is all these qualities, you, individual, also have all these qualities and are all these qualities. So ultimately, you're omnipotent. Ultimately, you're omnipresent. Ultimately, you're omniscient in spirit. And you're also immortal, right? This is all done in spirit. These bodies, yes, they are mortal. This mind, yes, like our conscious mind that's connected to the body, yes, all this stuff is mortal because it's part of the body, it's part of the manifestation. But the real central, highest part of who we are is one in unity and is this infinite intelligence in the flesh. Remember, this is the viewpoint that Christ came to teach us, in which Christ came to give us. So what he's telling us in that sentence too is that our lives, right, we could be whole, we could be perfect, we could be abundant, we could be all these things if we understand, the true nature of who and what we are in spirit. He says the flash of genius does not have origin in the molecular motion of the brain. It is inspired by the ego, the spiritual I, which is one with the universal mind. And it is our ability to recognize this unity, which is the cause of all inspiration, all genius. These results are far-reaching and have effect upon generations yet to come. They are the pillars of fire which mark the path that millions follow. Man, this is good. Got my creatine, my electrolytes, my vitamin packet in there. Man. It says truth is not the result of logical training or of experimentation. Or even of observation. It is the product of a developed consciousness. Yes and no. I don't fully agree with that. Because we know that anything that means anything to anybody is also dependent upon where they are in consciousness, how expanded they are internally, mentally, to even understand what's happening in front of them. Right? So they could be observing something that is 100% truer than true, but with their limited expansed consciousness, they're only going to see so much of that reality. I remember watching a video. I don't remember who the speaker was, but the man was talking about consciousness. And he was talking about if you have a golf ball sized consciousness, you're going to have a golf ball sized understanding of the universe. You'll have a golf ball sized experience of what you're experiencing in reality. And then he goes on saying, if you could expand that consciousness, you could expand your awareness, then you'll have an expanded understanding of the universe in which you live. And you'll have an expanded understanding or even experience of the things you're experiencing, right? Like your experience and quality of life will be higher quality because you have an expanded awareness toward the experience that you are experiencing. So I can see where Handel's coming from right here. Right, the product of the developed consciousness. He's talking about your consciousness is developed and expanded in such a way to where you could understand truth to begin with. Because I know for a fact experimentations bring truth to us. It helps us understand things for what they are. But I also see what he's saying here. The product of a developed consciousness. You have to be expanded enough to even understand what it is that you are observing. Let's continue. He says, truth within a Caesar manifests in a Caesar's deportment. Deportment? In his life and his action. Is this supposed to be department? Caesar's deportment. His influence upon social forms and progress. Well, what he is saying, ultimately, he's talking about the truth of Caesar. All that Caesar was, all that Caesar did, was a manifestation of where he was in consciousness, where he was mentally, where he was in awareness, how he thought about things, the things that he acted upon. Right? His entire life was a representation of who he was as a person. Handel continues, he says, your life and your actions and your influence in the world will depend upon the degree of truth which you are enabled to perceive. Man, I don't know where these little things are coming from. That's because I'm sweet. These bugs are attracted to sweet things. Don't listen to me. Anyway. Yeah, I'm not sweet. Sometimes I can be a real jackass. Okay, so this truth, he's obviously using truth as a word for representing consciousness. Wait, hold on. Your life and your actions and your influence in the world will depend upon the degree of truth which you are enabled to perceive. For truth will not manifest in creeds, but in conduct. Okay, yes. It'll manifest through your character, because your character will be dependent upon your attitude. And consciousness being the center and creator of your mental attitude. Consciousness itself is the real truth, the fundamental truth, which brings all things into existence. He said it won't manifest in creeds because there are tons of creeds out there that aren't manifesting truth. It's mostly based on people's opinions, right? And truth itself comes about by an expanded consciousness, expanded awareness, and an expanded understanding of the reality which infinite intelligence said it is, not for what one individual says it is. It says truth manifests in character, and the character of a man should be the interpretation of his religion, or what to him is truth, and this will in turn be evidenced in the character of his possessions. If a man complains of the drift of his fortune, he is just as unjust to himself as if he should deny rational truth, though it stands patent and irrefutable. Our environment. Now, since he's talking about creeds, right? I am all for creeds. I am all for a systematic way of living. I think we as individuals, we need systems. We need thought that is systematized. And creeds, religions, I believe these things do need to be systematized in a certain way. The thing is, what is the fundamental basis of that systematized creed? Is that creed based upon what somebody's opinion of life is? Or is it dependent upon natural law, natural understanding? Is it dependent upon truth? Or is it dependent upon an individual's opinion? Because truth is truth regardless of our opinions, as this whole system is about. It's bringing our thought process into connection, into correspondence with the truth, so we can live our lives from the viewpoint of higher law. Especially for this society, I already mentioned it. I need to find out, which is what we're doing, how to develop a creed for this society to live through. Because I believe that's one reason this society is still hidden in books, right? People want a system. People need a system. And when you could take this and put it into a system, then it could really become something more than just something that's found in books. Right? It's like taking the information out of the book and bringing it into a real social organization through what society can agree upon. It's just like America, being an American, right? There's a doctrine, there's the Constitution, there's a certain set of rules the society has agreed to live upon, which makes America what it is. Same thing with New Thought, and I believe that's what New Thought is missing. It's the fact that it hasn't been established as a certain creed. There has to be some kind of doctrine, a set of rules. Our environment and the innumerable circumstances and accidents of our lives already exist in the subconscious personality, which attracts to itself the mental and physical present. And if there should be apparent injustice in any feature or phase of our personal life, we must look within for the cause, try to discover the mental fact, which is responsible for the outward manifestation. Again, try not to complain of conditions as they are. I know how hard it can be. I've done it too. I've done it many times. He says, why try not to get so caught up in the cause or in the effect of something. Focus on the cause and knowing that, hey, you can change your situation. You can change your condition. You can change your circumstance. I know it could be easy to look at the effect of something and get sucked in there. But, oh, this sucks. What the heck is this? All this and that. But he's telling us, don't get sucked into that, because you can change it by focusing on the cause of it. Because you were the cause of it. Somebody was the cause. Something out there caused it. And you have the opportunity to change it, to change a cause, to put another cause in motion, to reap a different effect. As he ends that statement, try to discover the mental fact, which is responsible for the outward manifestation. When you want something, establish the mental equivalent first, and and the experience of it will follow. Its manifestation will follow. It is this truth which makes you free. And it is the conscious knowledge of this truth which will enable you to overcome every difficulty. It is understanding the process of the truth and applying it towards a situation, which will change the effect of something for you to overcome the challenge which you are experiencing. He says the conditions with which you meet in the world without are invariably the result of the conditions obtaining in the world within. Therefore, it follows with scientific accuracy that by holding the perfect ideal in mind, you can bring about ideal conditions in your environment. If you see only the incomplete, the imperfect, the relative, the limited, these conditions will manifest in your life. But if you train your mind to see and realize the spiritual ego, the I, which is forever perfect and complete, harmonious, wholesome, and healthful conditions only will be manifested. He says, as thought is creative and the truth is the highest and most perfect thought which anyone can think, it is self-evident that to think the truth is to create that which is true. And it is again evident that when truth comes into being, that which is false must cease to be. The universal mind is the totality of all mind which is in existence. Spirit is mind, because spirit is intelligence. The words are, therefore, synonymous. The difficulty with which you have to contend is to realize that mind is not individual. It is omnipresent. It exists everywhere. In other words, there is no place where it is not. It is therefore universal. Men have heretofore generally used the word God to indicate this universal creative principle, but the word God does not convey the right meaning. Most people understand this word to mean something outside of themselves. Well, exactly the contrary is the fact. It is our very life. Without it, we would be dead. We would cease to exist. The minute the spirit leaves the body, we are as nothing. Therefore, spirit is really all there is of us. So he's telling us right there, and it is still true today, that the majority of people, when they think of God or the word God, they're still thinking of something outside of themselves. They're still thinking of God as something that exists beyond themselves. That he's saying it's the very contrary. It's the very opposite. That God, when you think of God, you must think of something that exists within you, something that exists as you. For God, in this sense, is being represented as the creative spirit, the creative power of all that is. And you are that power. You are one with that power. You are connected to it. So your spirit, you are this creative power in the flesh. Right? It's not something that exists. Yes, it exists outside of you because it is everything, but it also is you and within you. For you are not separate from anything outside of you. You are one with it. Although you may be experiencing it as something separate, but it truly is not. I know it's a concept. It's one heck of a concept to understand and really truly grasp. Because again, as we were talking about before, attraction wouldn't work if you were separate from the thing you are attracting. Right? In order for the law of cause and effect, in order for the law of correspondence, in order for the law of attraction to even happen at all, you have to be connected already to this thing that is seemingly outside of you. You're connected to it in spirit. You have to be connected to it, or else you would never be attracted to it. He says, now, the only activity which the spirit possesses is the power to think. Therefore, thought must be creative because spirit is creative. This creative power is impersonal, and your ability to think is your ability to control it and make use of it for the benefit of yourself and others. When the truth of this statement is realized, understood, appreciated, you will have come into possession of the master key. But remember that only those who are wise enough to understand, broad enough to weigh the evidence, firm enough to follow their own judgment, and strong enough to make the sacrifice exacted may enter and partake. So, viewer, this system has given you the master key of everything. It has given us the master key. But to really, truly take possession of the master key, we have to understand it. We have to see its reality for ourselves. We have to judge that reality for ourselves. And we have to discern through our experience with this information, with this knowledge, to see the truth of it happening within our lives. Because we are the key. Remember, to you getting everything that you want in this life, it is you. You are the key to manifesting it. It comes from within you. It cannot come from any other way. We got another one of those in here. Now, my room's not the cleanest, but it's not that dirty either. I know it's hot outside. They're probably looking for food. They're probably looking to be in a cooler area. But anyway, this thing's got to go, because if it doesn't, I don't want it in here. Right? He says this week, try to realize that this is truly a wonderful world in which we live, that you are a wonderful being, that many are awakening to a knowledge of the truth. And as fast as they awake and come into a knowledge of the, quote, things which have been prepared for them, end quote, they too realize that, quote, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither hath it entered into the heart of man, end quote, the splendors which exist for those who find themselves in the promised land. They have crossed the river of judgment and have arrived at the point of discrimination between the true and the false, and have found that all they ever willed or dreamed was but a faint concept of a dazzling reality. That is the end of part 24. Now we're going to end with a quote by S. Smiles. And I quote, it says, though an inheritance of acres may be bequeathed, an inheritance of knowledge and wisdom cannot. The wealthy man may pay others for doing his work for him, but it is impossible to get his thinking done for him by another, or to purchase any kind of self-culture. End quote. Now there's one more quote by Jonathan Edwards, and I quote, he says, temples have their sacred images, and we see what influence they have always had over a great part of mankind. But, in truth, the ideas and images in men's minds are the invisible powers that constantly govern them, and to these they all pay universally a ready submission. End quote. So this master key, the kingdom of heaven, this estate that exists within us, it is not an estate that can be bought. It is an estate that can only be inherited through the expansion of our personal consciousness. We have to expand our awareness to really obtain the truth of the statements of which we are being taught. That the kingdom of heaven has to be taken by the Spirit alone. It is something that cannot be bought. And that taking of it is an expansion of awareness. And he's saying these creeds, and Mr. Edwards is saying these creeds, these doctrines, these things that exist, that we live by, are all the power of the mind set in motion. They're the effects that came from the cause that's set in motion. So for our doctrine, our creed, it has to be established mainly in the truth alone. Ultimately, it's like doing the exact same thing Christ did. Because Christ didn't come to establish a religion. He established Christ. He established I. He established the power of the I over the flesh and over the world. That is the end of part 24. We have our last week of meditating, and we are completely done with this system. Wow, do I feel amazing right now. I feel awesome right now. I feel really good right now. 4 or 5 days out of the week, 4 to 5 days every week, we've been sitting in the silence for 30 minutes. Every Wednesday, we would sit down and go over the next part for the last 6 months. On top of our training, on top of working, on top of building something new with real estate, I feel very accomplished. I feel very good. And like you said in the last week, mastering yourself is not done in 6 months. It's a lifetime thing. So even though we finished this part, even though we finished this program, the program is not done. It's something we have to continue for the rest of our lives, especially when our goal is to modernize it, right? A modern master key with the information we have today. Man, there's a lot to do. There's a lot to do. So with that being said, that's the end of the master key system. If you made it to the end of this video, if you went through this program with me, good freaking job. Great job. I need to eat. I need to work out. I need to meditate. And I need to study. There's a lot of progress that still needs to be made. With all that being said, if you made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching. Like it, share, subscribe, and I will see you. We'll see where we go from there. Whether we continue our vlogs, whether we continue making our audiobooks. We got to continue from somewhere, and we'll figure it out. I'll see you next time.